Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you back to Freestyle Chess 2024. This is a very fascinating event. It's the first of its kind. This is day 1 of 2 in the finals. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana. Now, that's actually kind of funny because they're the top 2 players in the world right now, and they already played a world championship match against each other in 2018. So we could play Fischer Random or we could play regular chess, and these guys are still going to make it to the finals. Now, a friendly reminder, we are playing, like I just said, Fischer Random, so the back row of pieces is shuffled every single round, and my location is currently shuffled because I'm not at home. I'm actually in Charlotte, North Carolina for the Chess Kid National Festival. I also have an event tonight in Charlotte with just like a little bit of tickets remaining, so if you want some food and drinks, and yeah, I'll put a link in the description if you are in the Charlotte area. Also, I recently dropped a Scandinavian defense course. So for the next 3 days, courses are 25% off. Only for the next 3 days. Let me tilt this up a little bit. Here we go. Now, I will, of course, be showing you the match between Fabiano and Magnus. We also have the third place match between Nojibek Abdusattorov and Liren Aronian. We have Alireza, Firouzja, and Gukesh playing for 4th and 5th place. And we also, rather 5th and 6th. And this is the 7th and 8th place match. Now, I've been covering Ding Liren this entire tournament. If you don't know, Ding Liren is the reigning defending world champion of classical chess. Magnus gave away his title because he actually wanted to go pursue golf competitively. Many of you who know basketball may remember Michael Jordan once stepped away from the game in order to go play baseball, which is not a real sport. I'm just kidding. The last time I said that in a video, a lot of baseball enthusiasts got upset. But yeah, Michael Jordan stepped away from the game. Magnus is stepping away from the game to go play golf. Ding Liren has not won a game in this tournament. I'm not exaggerating. This is day 6. 6 days of chess, Ding Liren has not won a game. Something's got to change. So he keeps playing. They play for 7th and 8th place. Vincent Keymer plays the move d4, and this is our starting setup. Like I said, randomly selected before the game. So it's always interesting where the players are going to castle, how they're going to play the opening. We will compare every single opening. Ding plays g6, okay? Plays g6 in order to, obviously, to open up the queen, because you kind of have to. And then knight f3, and he plays f5. So it's quite clear Ding, will probably put a knight on f6, and then it's just a question of, is he going to castle his king that way? Because then he'll need to remove quite a bit of pieces, or will he castle short? Now, Vincent opens up his rook right away, which is really interesting that now his rook is standing in the center of the board. I don't really know what his idea was against knight f6, but we're not even going to have to find out because Ding plays d5. Okay, fair enough. And the rook just goes back to the home square. But this is basically meaning that white can't castle short anymore. The Fischer Random freestyle chess is very weird. And yet, look at the evaluation. And now look at the evaluation after one pawn move. A pawn move getting center space, winning a tempo, and opening the bishop. And now white is just better by like 0.6. Why is that? Well, apparently, the move d5 is so weakening of the dark squares in the center. Like when you commit a pawn, anytime you move anything in chess, something gets stronger, something gets weaker, something gets forgotten, and something now you might claim. But in this case, because you play d5, you completely abandon the quest for this square, and it's a lesson in moving your pawn. So now knight e6 and c3. Ding plays c5 to continue to try to open up that side of the board. Now, as you can already see, this is the 6th move of the game. And from the opening, it is actually Vincent with a already commanding advantage. Now, the move c5, Ding played really fast. Really fast. Which is quite a big decision. I mean, I have to tell you, knight e6 and c5. And bishop f4 check. How does black stop the check? Black stops the check by blocking and losing the right to castle. So Ding's king is on c7 now. Why is he playing like that? Well, why is he playing so provocatively? This is what I don't understand. Knight e3, he gives this check, gives up the bishop, and now I guess he's just going to try to stabilize, but Vincent very quickly castles, has 3 and 3 pawn structure. That's still a gaping hole in the center. The queen is probably going to open up, or maybe he's going to try to bring, the g pawn forward, and maybe he'll play h4 and bring the queen up. But the position just looks very good for white. Queen g, first he plays f3, then he plays queen g1, and he's completely winning. Liren has played 11 games in this event. He has 3 draws and 8 losses. And in this game, he's already worse from the 6th move. I mean, this is unfathomable. Now, of course, I understand if you're knocked out of an event and clearly you're not in good form, can you imagine getting knocked out of a tournament and you're like gonna go home and they're like, nope, you gotta play again. And you're like, but I lost. And they're like, yeah, but you gotta play this other guy that lost for unclear, reasons because they just, I get it, I understand, but he has struggled. And I mean, Vincent shows absolutely no mercy in this game. Knight b5. He takes on d5. He doubles up. He's just a pawn up. He trades everything. And he just goes here and Ding resigns. Ding resigns. Ding has played 12 games. He has 3 draws and 9 losses. It's just shocking stuff. And again, I have to cover all the games. It's not like, look, I'm fair to every player. You're not insulting anybody by showing their games, but this is just shocking to see. I mean, it really is. I don't know how to feel about the whole thing. I really don't. I don't feel good about it. But I have to show the games. And Ding has, he's a game away from ending the event, but he hasn't won. Now, this is a matchup for 5th and 6th place. These guys obviously defeated their 7th and 8th place counterparts. Gukesh beat Keymer and Alireza beat Ding. And, again, we are going to compare openings in every game. This one has a totally different opening than this one, which is very interesting. We have like a weird Dutch with f5, g6 in this game and a very quick e4 in this game. We do have e4, but we have a much more locked type of maneuvering game as the guys get their knights out very slowly. And already Gukesh has an advantage on the 6th move, which is very fun. And his advantage rests in the fact that he can play for f5, and he does. He immediately attacks the center of the board. And according to Stockfish, which of course doesn't know much about Fischer Random or Freestyle Chess or Chess 960, Black is better. The reason that Black is better is I guess White is a little bit passive. I think Firouzja had set up a position where he might be able to castle quickly either direction, like the king could castle this way or this way. But now he has to play Gukesh's game and explode the center of the board. Gukesh captures, baiting Alireza's pieces forward, rips open the center once again, and plays this very nice and calm queen g8. And I think the point is that it's very difficult for White to make a commitment. For example, if White commits this way, how's the queen ever getting out? Right? Black is going to park the knight on f4, and it's going to be a really, really nice position. Okay? So let me refresh the board. So instead of that, he commits this king this way. And here, for reasons I don't quite understand, Gukesh did not play a5. Again, opposite side castling. In this case, Black hasn't castled yet, but you got a king castled over there. Why wouldn't you just start a pawn attack? That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I don't know what he didn't like about this move. Clearly something. Puts his knight on f4 instead. And that's not considered a good move. It was considered better to go a5. Now knight f4, and Alireza is so clutch. d5 right away. d5 right away. Occupying central space, opening up the diagonal, and immediately the advantage is completely gone for Black. Like one pawn move, and suddenly Gukesh has to begin... and you'll notice Alireza spent 17 minutes on pushing a pawn 1 square. This is why it's going to be really hard to get chess on television, by the way. I say this a lot, but 17 minutes he's just sitting there. And then he just doink. Now imagine explaining that. Meanwhile, we have like the biggest pop icons in the world attending American football games, and we've got, Kylian Mbappe not committing back to PSG, and God, we have so much stuff. And this is just, I don't know how we're going to do it. Bishop f5. Take. G3. Take on d5. Alireza says, you can have my pawn. But by taking the pawn, you open up my rook, and you open up my queen, because now my queen actually can activate. Knight d4, and the knight strolls into the black position. Gukesh has a problem with his king. He can't save it yet. He doesn't have a way he can put it. Rook e8, and Alireza, a man after my own heart. Good man. Sacrifices the rook. I don't want to yell him in a hotel room and they're cleaning outside, and I'm kind of embarrassed, so I'm not going to yell. He sacrificed the rook! They can't hear me. Pawn takes. Queen takes. Now Alireza is just threatening to win the game. Queen d6 is just devastating. So bishop c7, and he takes on f5. So ultimately, Alireza has a horse and a pawn for the rook. He also has very active pieces. This knight is a beast. And one more thing that he can do is he has what's called a pawn majority. He has 3 pawns versus 1, which is a huge problem because as those pawns begin moving up, they begin threatening to queen. And if you can't stop them because they're escorted so effectively by all the other pieces, this is a fake advantage for black. A5. Now here, Alireza plays a gangster move. I love this move. Bro, he plays king d2. I can't even begin to explain the move king d2 to you. I don't even get it. Like, why didn't he just play f4? Maybe he was worried about rook a6 and rook c6? Maybe he needed to defend his rook. That's probably what it was. He needed to defend the knight against rook takes rook. That is so crazy. So in the middle of this game, he just straight up plays king d2. Like, what a hero. I mean, what a hero of a move. Now the knight can move, and if rook takes rook, it's not check, and also it's protected. Since rook takes rook is not check, wherever white's knight moves on the next move, it can then move again, right? So bishop b6. Here comes f4. Gukesh brings the rook. Here comes g4. Here comes b4, closing down the queen side. He gets his bishop out of the way, and now he can threaten a queen trade. He is threatening a queen trade. That's not really a sentence that you hear very often in chess, but right now the transition to the endgame would win for white. So you can't do that. Queen d5, rook e4, uh-oh. Clearly, the queen going out here, the queen going on a little spiritual journey to a4 was a fatal mistake, and rook e4 not only stabilizes the position, white is now winning because b5 traps the queen, basically. Instead of that, the computer says Gukesh should have gone bishop f2, and if rook went up, he should have threatened his own queen trade and then doubled his rooks and taken on c3. Yeah, but he walks his queen out and immediately is just losing. And Alireza swarms. What a devastating attack. Trades the bishops. Here he could have played rook c4. So the game, he did not convert it with Stockfish's full blessing, but clearly from start to finish, it was all Alireza. He finds rook c4 and the pawn just goes. So again, if we watch the game without Stockfish, smooth sailing, rook f4, the idea is rook f8, and clean game by him. So Alireza wins, Vincent wins his game. Now it's time for the bronze medal match between Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Liren Aronian. Let's remind everybody of the openings that we've seen thus far. In this game, we have d4, f5, we have knight g3, and we have d5. Okay, so Liren plays a stonewall, the stonewall Dutch, with pawns on the light squares and then control over the light squares here. But of course, very different. You'll remember that Ding Liren played d5, which weakened the dark squares, but the difference is that in this game, white has not played e4, so white hasn't actually activated the rook. And actually, a couple of moves later, the guys are just mirroring each other. So they're both fighting for completely different things, right? White is going to control the dark squares, and maybe black will try to undermine. Black is going to control the light squares, and maybe white will try to undermine. Terrific. Knight 8 d7. A4, A5. Now the queen gets into the action. Look at the queen activating right away. E3. White is rock solid on the dark squares. We have a knight trade. We're probably going to get another knight trade pretty soon. Here comes Nodirbek, undermining, like I said, and here come the knights off the board. Okay, so we have a position of bishops, queens, and rooks. It's a position where the guys hate horses. They are not into that stuff. So queen can activate on the F file. It's already, I guess, activated, more like pressure on the F-file. Question of what's going to happen here with these pawns. Nodirbek had a position yesterday very similar to this. He had a position of no horses versus Magnus Carlsen. Bishop to G4 is played, which apparently is wrong. I don't really understand why it's wrong, so but Bishop G4 targeting the pawn is apparently completely incorrect. Rook F8 would be strong, and after Queen E2, you can take the pawn, bait the queen to come forward, and then play Bishop to B4 and claim that you are better because you have the active rook. This is actually extremely reminiscent of Nodirbek's game yesterday against Magnus, which he ended up losing. No, he drew yesterday, but he was losing, and he could have lost the match. Bishop B4. Did lose the match, but could have lost it 2-0. Now, Liren here makes a bad decision. He takes on c4 in this version. Why Liren refused to put the rook on f8, I don't know. Because, yes, it destabilizes e6, but you're defending it twice. And the trade-off would be you get the f-file. So, listen, he's like an elite player, and he's playing for the bronze medal and not me. but I don't know what the difference is between these moves. Maybe he thought here white would have to play queen c4, but Nordjabek finds a very well-timed bishop trade, understanding that this pawn is not going anywhere, understanding that Levon has another weakness here, and after this trade, even though Levon is able to create this bind in the center, we have bishop takes c4, and yeah, Nordjabek never got kicked off the f-file. So again, just a really big question of why did Levon not play rook to f8? Don't know, can't really explain it to you. Now he plays rook f8, okay, but he could have played it like ages ago. I don't know why he didn't do it now. Bishop takes, and this is the real problem. Now if Nordjabek plays rook takes, he loses the rook and he loses a queen because it's a fork. If he plays pawn takes, if Levon plays pawn takes, this pawn becomes a passer. It's got nothing in its way, right? And if he plays rook takes f2, white will play bishop takes b7, which is called a Zwischenzug, and then he's going to lose the bishop for a pawn and then take back. So you can't do that. Which means, after pawn takes and king a2, and even this trade, only Nordjabek is better. Nordjabek has a passed pawn. Not only does he have a passed pawn, it's protected, and that is protected. So in all endgames, this is a nightmare for black to deal with, because now all black has to do is worry about that pawn. If that pawn was like back here, there would be no activity for white. But no matter what type of endgame you go for now, that pawn is going to be a problem. It's going to be a biggest type of problem in a king and pawn endgame, because in a king and pawn endgame, black's king can go forward. Queen e6, rook c1. So Nordjabek just basically gets into a really nice position. Plays rook c5. You can't take the rook because the queen is pinning the pawn to the queen. Queen f7, queen b5. Making Levon play really passive defense. He could trade. In this position, again, I don't know why he can't trade and play rook f2, but he just takes the file right away and then starts advancing his pawn, just taking space away from black, letting black's pawn sit back there. Really a masterful technique. c5, though, Levon quick with counterplay, trying to destabilize white's center and trying to land white in a situation where if you allow pawn takes, black also has a passed pawn. Oh, then it's anybody's game. So c5 is a very, very well-timed strike. Now, we have dc5, counterplay created by Levon, pawn to d4, discovered attack with the queen, and the pawn gets to d3. And not only does it get to d3, it gets to d2, which apparently is wrong. There's a saying in chess, the threat is more valuable than the execution. All right? The threat, just the threat of the pawn advancing is scary. White has to respect it. But the second the pawn goes, it's no longer as defended as it was. And rook d1, immediately he swarms. Levon has 40 seconds. Queen goes back to b3, pinning the rook. And now we end up in an endgame where Nordjabek is winning. Levon had to take on he had to bring his king, actually. Apparently. Rook e5, rook d7, and now Nordjabek is simply going to convert this endgame. This is a completely winning endgame because, first of all, white is up a pawn, which is important in rook endgames, but more importantly than that, white is set to win a second pawn. That's the most important thing. So, for example, if you play in this position, rook g4, black has to protect himself. Like, there is no option, right? And now, rook g6 check is just winning a second pawn. So, that's it. King c5, rook h6. The only thing that black has here is activity, okay? So black can play king b4, black can play king c4, right? And go for this pawn. Black can maybe go for this pawn and try to promote because white is a little bit stuck. So we have rook to g5, counterattacking the pawn on g2. Now, what you don't want to do here, which is instructive, you don't want to play rook h2 because now black will play king c4, rook g3, and the position is completely miserable for you. Like, you can't move. You can't move either piece. So, temporary fix, but you don't actually fix the root cause, right? So, instead of that, a better move here is to actually activate the king, believe it or not. Lose a pawn with check, but play king c3 and rook e2. Now you can play rook h5 and bring the king or try to win this pawn. And maybe you can win the long-term endgame. Nordjabek plays here. And Levon finds this. And for a brief moment in time, Nordjabek Abdusattorov would have been up 3 pawns in a rook endgame, but the position is a draw. That is crazy. And the reason it's a draw is that if you save your pawn, you don't save anything because I take. And that is crazy. It's stalemate. Black is stalemated. There are no legal moves in this position. And the craziest part is, if you try to get out of stalemate, you get mated. Oh, that is brutal. That is tough. Oh my God. Oh my. What can you even say about that? Nodirbek Abdusattorov was going to be up 3 pawns in a rook endgame, and the game is still going to end in a draw. So instead of that, he goes here, and it doesn't matter because black activates his king. He's going to win the pawn on e3. He wins this one. He goes here. He's going to win that one too. And the game is a draw. How insane is that? What an attack by Nodirbek, who was just winning. But I guess he just needed to bring his king a little bit faster. I mean, he played exactly what you're supposed to do. Maybe in this position, he could have played king c2. But as you can see from the evaluation, it's kind of undecided, right? I mean, you would think being up 2 pawns in a rook endgame is completely winning, but black activated his king, and it was anything but easy. So they make a draw. Now we go to the main event of the evening. I'm just going to back up to look at the opening, and we have Fabiano Caruana, Magnus Carlsen, and this one actually very similar to the first game that we see, but we have e4, we have e5, so completely different openings in every single game. Totally different. All right. Now, Fabiano here can do a lot of things. He can push and turn the game into a very imbalanced type of like King's Indian structure, or he can take, which is slightly more boring. But the point is that the structure is fixed and black can't activate his queen and rook as easily. Kind of smart. Then he puts his bishop over here. Very natural development, actually. Then he develops this bishop in the knight. Very principled man. And then he castles. So Fabiano in the first 9 moves basically has like exactly what you want in a game of chess. Magnus is on the back foot. I mean, Fabiano has a very, very pleasant opening development. Sounds upstairs like somebody just dropped 100 5-pound ping pong balls. I hope that noise is only during the day and not at night, because if I got to listen to that at night, I might have to throw hands. Knight comes out to e6 for Magnus. And you would love to play knight d5 here with white. Just try to go after the bishop, but he's just going to go here, and somebody's going to have to protect this pawn, and after somebody protects this pawn, he's going to kick your knight out, and you kind of get nowhere. So that's not going to work, all right? So instead of that, queen f1. Both guys bring their queens, just like we saw in the game between Nodirbek and Levon. Bishop c4, targeting the knight. But now a well-timed counterattack, knight to b6. It's actually really difficult to break through the position here. The computer for white already wants to play a4, just absent-mindedly trying to grab some space, but it's already just black's position is too stable. And you kind of go back to the beginning and wonder, well, Fabiano did not have to take. You know, maybe Fabi just wanted some stability. He kind of wanted an easy game where he doesn't have to think of all the intricacies. And he does try to get a little bit provocative here by giving up his bishop, which obviously traditionally giving up a bishop for a knight like this is not particularly good. Which the engine liked for black, but neither guy liked it for black. That's why Fabi played knight d5. He invited Magnus to take, and he invited Magnus to help activate his queen. Magnus thought for a bit and played bishop a3. So just trying to trade off the bishops. Bishop takes a3, king to b1. And now Magnus, as quickly as he got in, he got out, in and out. Because the pawn on f6 was hanging. So he comes out of the position, and he still hasn't committed his king. He still hasn't touched his bishop. He hasn't moved 4 pieces. But somehow his position is really, really resilient. And now it's up to Fabi. Like, Fabi can go for a4, a5. And he does. He plays a4, weakening his king and trying to play the move a5. Black can play a5, but that would weaken the structure. So he doesn't. Instead, it's time for Fabiano's knight to make a decision in the center of the board. Which way is it going to go? Take, take. By the way, black's king now might not even have to castle, right? Both guys have rooks, both guys have bishop and knight, both guys have queens. The structure is these 3 versus these 3. You know, queen d3, queen d6 looks pretty good, but how are you going to get any of these pawns active, right? In any chess game, in any middle game, you're looking at what can I do with my knight? What can I do with my bishops, my rooks, my queen? What can I do with my pawns? The answer? Not a whole lot. And Fabi actually does something really shocking here. He gives the bishop for the knight, which is nuts. And both guys miss an idea here. Magnus just takes back with the bishop because it would be deranged to take back with the rook. And yet apparently, if you take back with the rook, there's an idea here, which is b5. And the point is that you're going to get some help. Not only are you going to get some help, but like, obviously you have queen a3, but queen a3 on its own is not going to do. You have cb, and the rook joins the attack. Both guys totally miss a chance. Now, I don't know if they saw something. I don't know if they hallucinated. Clearly, they just thought, take. I'm going to centralize my queen. I'm going to put my queen here. And as you can see, the position is balanced. Bishop here, rook e6 and pawn to b5, creating an attack on Fabiano's king would have been absolutely brute force. I mean, I don't know what he had planned there. Like, if he tries to play c4 stopping b5, that doesn't stop anything. If you play c takes b5, c takes b5, queen takes b5, you're up a pawn. But rook a6, and hello, we're teaming up on the b file. It's actually white's king who's much weaker. This is nuts. So both guys miss rook takes e6, b5. I mean, I don't know if they either missed it, underestimated it, miscalculated. They could have seen it, calculated, decided that it was fine. But as far as I can see, rook e6 and b5 would have been a monstrous chance here. And it's rare, but it's rare that the top two players in the world miss such an idea, but clearly they had stability on their minds. You know, it was Valentine's Day, nice and stable, and nice and stable it stayed, because they traded literally, they could have, they could have played like here, and made a draw. But then white actually would have been a touch better because he would have actually activated his pawns quite quickly. Instead of that, they shuffled their pieces back and forth, and draw is made. None of this. None of that, although, again, Fabiano could have claimed he has control of the dark squares, but no, a very peaceful resolution on day number 1, a completely non-peaceful resolution in the game between Neugebek and Levon, which was a potential 3 pawns down endgame that was still a draw by some sort of miracle. So the winner of Freestyle Chess 2024 will be crowned tomorrow. Fabiano and Magnus have played many epic matches against each other, and hopefully tomorrow we get a big tiebreak. Hopefully it doesn't just end in the first classical game. Magnus will have the white pieces, but in Fischer Random, that doesn't always mean an advantage. Tomorrow we will crown a bronze medal winner between Levon and Neugebek, Gukesh versus Alireza, and we'll see if Liren gets a win on the board in this event, because that is an absolutely crazy scoreline that he has right now. That's all I have for you today. If you're in Charlotte and you don't have tickets for some reason to the Chess Kid National Festival, make sure to check it out, or the event tonight, or not. And all courses are 25% off. All right, I'm going to go get some lunch. Get out of here.